I'm Jeremy. Today's day 155 of reading. Today I'm reading Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Let's get started. We're on page 171. From the rest of the class. Snape looked more menacing than ever. You are easily satisfied. Lupin is hardly overtaxing you. I would expect first years to be able to deal with Redcaps and Grindylows. Today, we shall discuss. Harry watched him flip through the textbook to the very back chapter, which he must know they hadn't covered. Werewolves, said Snape. But, sir, said Hermione, seemingly unable to restrain herself. We're not supposed to do werewolves yet. We're due to start Hinking-Pugs. Miss Granger, said Snape in a voice of deadly calm. I was under the impression that I am teaching you this lesson, not you. And I am turning you all to turn to page 394. He glanced around again. All of you, now! With many bitter, silent looks and some sullen muttering, the class opened their books. Which of you can tell me how we distinguish between werewolves and the true wolf? Said Snape. Everyone sat in motionless silence. Everyone except Hermione, who sat, as it so often did, had shot straight into the air. Anyone? Snape said, ignoring Hermione. His twisted smile was back. Are you telling me that Professor Lupin hasn't even taught you the basic distinction between... We told you, said Parvati suddenly. We haven't gotten as far as werewolves yet. We're still on silence. Well. I never thought I'd meet a third-year class who wouldn't even recognize a werewolf when they saw one. I shall make a point of informing Professor Dumbledore how very behind you all are. Please, sir, said Hermione, whose hand was still in the air, the werewolf differs from the true wolf in several small ways. The snout of the werewolf, this is the second time you have spoken out of turn, Miss Granger, said Snape coolly. 5 more points from Gryffindor for being an insufferable know-it-all. Hermione went very red, put down her hand, and stared at the floor with her eyes full of tears. It was a mark of how much the class loathed Snape that they were all glaring at him, because every one of them had called Hermione a know-it-all at least once, and Ron, who told Hermione she was a know-it-all at least twice a week, said loudly, You asked us a question and she knows the answer. Why ask if you don't want to be told? The class knew instantly he'd gone too far. Snape advanced on Ron, slowly, and the room held its breath. Detention, Weasley, Snape said silkily, his face very close to Ron's. And if I ever hear you criticize the way I teach a class again, you will be very sorry indeed. No one made a sound throughout the rest of the lesson. They sat and made notes on werewolves from the textbook, while Snape prowled up and down the rows of desks, examining the work they had been doing with Professor Lupin. Very poorly explained. This is incorrect. The kappa is more commonly found in Mongolia. Professor Lupin gave this 8 out of 10. I wouldn't have given it a 3. When the bell rang at last, Snape held them back. You'll each write an essay to be handed in to me on the way you recognize and kill werewolves. I want 2 rolls of parchments on this subject, and I want them by Monday morning. It is time somebody took this class in hand. Weasley, stay behind. We need to arrange your detention. Harry and Hermione left the room with the rest of the class, who waited until they were well out of earshot, then burst into furious tirade about Snape. Snape's never been like this when any of our other Defense Against Dark Arts teacher, even if he did want the job, Harry said to Hermione. Why has he got it for Lupin? Do you think this is all because of the Boggart? I don't know, said Hermione pensively, but I really hope Professor Lupin gets better soon. Ron caught up with them 5 minutes later, in a towering rage. Do you know what that? He called Snape something that made Hermione say, "Ron is making me do? I've got to scrub out the bedpans in the hospital wing without magic." He was breathing deeply, his fists clenched. Why couldn't Black have hidden in Snape's office? He could have finished him off for us. Harry woke extremely early the next morning, so early that it was still dark. For a moment, he thought the roaring of the wind had woken him. Then he felt the cold breeze on the back of his neck and sat bolt upright. Peeves the Poltergeist had been floating next to him, blowing hard in his ear. "What did you do that for?" said Harry furiously. Peeves poked out his cheeks, blew hard, and zoomed backward out of the room, cackling. Harry fumbled for his alarm clock and looked at it. It was 4:30. Cursing Peeves, he rolled over and tried to get back to sleep. But it wasn't very difficult, now that he was awake, to ignore the sounds of thunder rumbling overhead, the pounding of the wind against the castle walls, and the distant creaking of the trees in the forbidden forest. In a few hours, he would be out on the Quidditch field, battling through that gale. Finally, he gave up any thought of more sleep, got up, dressed, picked up his Nimbus 2000, and walked quietly out of the dormitory. As Harry opened the door, something brushed against his leg. He bent down just in time to grab Crookshanks by the end of his bushy tail and drag him outside. "You know, I reckon Ron was right about you," Harry told Crookshanks suspiciously. "There are plenty of mice around this place. Go and chase them." "Go on," he added, nudging Crookshanks down the spiral staircase with his foot. "Leave Scabbers alone." The noise of the storm was even louder in the common room. Harry knew better than to think the match would be cancelled. Quidditch matches weren't called off for trifles like thunderstorms. Nevertheless, he was starting to feel very apprehensive. One had pointed out Cedric Diggory to him in the corridor. Diggory was a fifth year and a lot bigger than Harry. Seekers were usually light and speedy, but Diggory's weight would be an advantage in this weather because he was less likely to be blown off course. Harry whiled away the hours until dawn in front of the fire, getting up every now and then to stop Crookshanks from sneaking up the boys' staircase again. At long last, Harry thought it must be time for breakfast, so he headed through the porthole alone. "Stand and fight, you mangy cur!" yelled Sir Cadogan. "Oh, shut up!" Harry yawned. He revived a bit over a large bowl of porridge, and by the time he started on toast, the rest of the team had turned up. "It's going to be a tough one," said Wood, who wasn't eating anything. "Stop worrying, Oliver," said Alicia soothingly. "We don't mind a bit of rain." But it was considerably more than a bit of rain. Such was the popularity of Quidditch that the whole school turned out to watch the match as usual. But they ran down the lodge toward the Quidditch field, heads bowed against a ferocious wind. Umbrellas being whipped out of their hands as they went. Just before he entered the locker room, Harry saw Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle laughing and pointing at him from under an enormous umbrella on their way to the stadium. The team changed into their scarlet robes and waited for one's usual pre-match pep talk. But it didn't come. He tried to speak several times, made an odd gulping noise, then shook his head hopelessly and beckoned them to follow him. The wind was so strong that they staggered sideways as they walked out onto the field. If the crowd was cheering, they couldn't hear it over the fresh rolls of thunder. Rain was splattering over Harry's glasses. How on earth was he going to see the snitch in this? The Hufflepuffs were approaching from the opposite side of the... Thank you, everyone. That's all for today. Bye. See you tomorrow.